Hello everyone, how's it going? I am WoWcrendor and welcome back to another episode of Fishing with Crendor. This is the 4th episode and today we are joined by the one and only Biscuit that is fully total.
Oh, fully total? That seems slightly redundant, don't you think?
Well, I'm all about redundancy.
Absolutely.
So, I'm pretty sure everybody already knows who you are that watches me, but for the couple people that don't, why don't you tell them?
Well, I started my YouTube career being a World of Warcraft channel. I was essentially the #1 WoW channel in the Cataclysm beta, in competition with people like Jesse Cox and the Yogscast, but I was generally the guy who was getting the most views, getting the content out first. Every time there was a new piece of content, I'd be jumping on that. I believe I was the first person to sneak into Oldham and also into the Twilight Highlands when they weren't open to the public. I sort of exploited my way in and flew around, and I did the dungeon runs first. We tried to complete the bosses first, everything like that, and that kind of started my YouTube career. And eventually I moved away from WoW and transitioned more into gaming critique. So I look a lot at indie games and things on PC, and I do news coverage and a bit of Hearthstone here and there, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, because I remember way back when, long, 8 or 9 years ago, you did Blue Please.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I first started playing WoW, or it was maybe a year into it, and I started listening to that, and I would level as I play. And I remember you had it was stick cam chat, and you would be in the stick cam chat with all the people on webcam. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we
go.
had that for a while. Yeah, that was an interesting one. We just had it there. So it was one time we decided just to give it a try, and we had 5 or 10 cams running or something, and it would just be a bunch of chatting and things like that. But Blue Please was a live audio show back in the day, and it was a podcast. It was one of the more popular ones. I know we weren't as big as the Instance, which I think was the biggest one at the time, but we're pretty popular, number 3 or 4, I think. It did pretty well.
I mean, compared to today's numbers, how many views did it get back then?
It was actually not bad. We were clocking sometimes on our best days 50,000 per episode for the podcast. So I mean, we get 500, 600 live, and that was really all our servers could handle anyway, because this was before Twitch even existed. So you had to pay for a shoutcast server, so we had to buy a bunch of servers to host our audio and things like that.
Yeah.
We used to get 500, 600 live, but the podcast ended up actually getting very popular on some days. It was generally down to when there was a really controversial thing that happened, when they started implementing badges into the game. I think it was was it around tier 9? I suppose it must have been around tier 9.
Yeah, I'd say.
And they were just giving away epic gear willy-nilly, and I was super pissed about it because I was a hardcore raider at the time, and I viewed it as just casualizing WoW. That's not even a word. I'm going to use it anyway. It's just making WoW so super casual and removing any real need to raid and actually work together as a team. I thought it was just kind of gutting the more interesting aspects of the game, and I remember putting out a really controversial episode at the time, and I know that got really popular, and I guess because it echoed a lot of the opinions of people at the time who were getting sick of all the compromises that Blizzard were making.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of still making those compromises.
Of course, yeah. I'm beyond caring at this point. I'm a lot older now. I mean, I started playing WoW on launch, and it's 10 years old now, isn't it?
It's over 10 years old now.
Yeah, so I was playing 10 years ago. I had a lot more time back then. I had a different attitude back then. I think the way they've got it set up now is probably pretty good because they've got a lot of different tiers of difficulty. So it's hey, something for everyone. But back when I was playing, they were deliberately nerfing content and then putting this giant gap between the nerfed content and the difficult content. So it was impossible to make the leap. So it's I'm prepared for raiding. Oh, wait, this boss is 5 times harder than the first version. It's their difficulty curve was completely out of whack because they were catering so much to people that said, I'm going to quit if you don't give me epics, Yeah. I remember my first raid, and that was Molten Core with 40 people, and it took us a month to down Luciferon, the first boss, but when we finally did it, it was such a awesome moment for everybody. We were all on TeamSpeak cheering, and everyone was really happy, and that's when we started to make progress. And then I moved to some hardcore guilds. I used to raid with Lether, who were a hardcore guild. We were raiding AQ40 at the time, and we were working hard. I mean, we were trying to down Cthulhu, and we eventually did after a couple of weeks. But you had to farm for 2 hours prior to every Cthulhu run because you needed elemental earth in order to make the greater nature protection potions. Because otherwise you just couldn't live through his I-beam crap. So it was so much work, but that's the attitude that I had at the time. I don't really ever want to go back to WoW, I don't think. It's just, I'm over it now. I think that was kind of a part of my life that I enjoyed. Now I've moved on from it, but I think they've probably got things set up pretty well now. I like the fact that there's 4 difficulty levels. I think that it does a good job of catering to lots of different people, but when I used to play, it was all about who got the wool first, and I don't think anyone really cares about that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they really do either. They want the, just get the achievements.
Yeah,
it's like...
I remember when they first brought those in, I was just like, I don't care. Although I did get some pretty unique feats of strength, because I had some rare items. I still have my Murky from 2005 BlizzCon, which is apparently stupidly rare now. Like, almost nobody has it that still plays the game. I had my big Blizzard Bear, which had the little Murky riding on top of it with the BlizzCon.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing those.
BlizzCon 2007, because remember, there wasn't actually a BlizzCon 2006. They skipped a year, and then they did it again. So I had that and the Murloc suit from 2008, and a bunch of stuff from the trading card game that was really rare, because I was playing the WoW TCG when that first came out. So I had, like, the original fishing chair before they put in the fake fishing chair, the scum chair that was given to everyone that had, like, the umbrella with the hearts on it. It was like, yeah, it's not the real chair. I'd put down my real one. I'm like, yeah, look at this. I'm OG.
So why don't we rewind and go back to when you first, like, ever even heard of WoW, and, like, how you actually found out about it.
I was actually playing a different game called PlanetSide at the time, and you've probably heard of it because PlanetSide 2 came out a couple of years back, and I was big into it, like, on its launch. Eventually kind of moved out of it, but I still think that PlanetSide's one of the most unique games to ever exist. It was like, I don't think it was the first massively multiplayer FPS. I think that was World War II Online, or possibly Neocron, but it was like one of the best ones, and at the time it was so cool and unique. I was in a guild, and we used to organize these big raids. We'd have like 50, 60 people. We'd get them in drop ships and drop them on a base, and we'd all fight, and it was incredible. And eventually, a bunch of us were, like, we heard about this new game called WoW that was coming out, and obviously I'd played all of the other Blizzard games, so I wasn't really too hyped up about it, but because of a bunch of our guys from PlanetSide moving to WoW, I was like, I'll come play with you, why not? So I got a copy, I pre-ordered my copy, got it on launch, and then spent all day trying to log in. Because the EU servers were busted, completely busted. You could not log in at all. It took me about 9 hours to get onto the server.
So really, nothing changed with Blizzard games.
No, not nothing. It's exactly the same as it used to be. You know, they've got no better at it.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so terrible. It was like several days of people not being able to get on. Eventually, I got on in the evening and I started playing around, and I got a few levels and then just kind of logged off. Like, I didn't get hooked into it, actually. I had a lot of difficulty getting to max level, to getting to 60, because it just didn't quite gel with me. I actually quit about 8 times before I hit level 60 because I just couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, I was actually the same too.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. And the only reason I got there was because I was being egged on by my guildmates, and we were all kind of keeping each other into the game. So, I mean, leveling up in the original WoW was pretty boring, honestly. Like, the questing wasn't that good. And I think a lot of people that played older MMOs, and bear in mind, I didn't. Like, the first MMO I played was PlanetSide, and that's completely different to every other MMO that exists. There's no quests. It's pure PvP. There's no grinding. You know, it's just FPS battles all the time. So it was amazing. But WoW was like, oh, God, I've got to do another one of these, you know? And then other people were saying, wow, it's so different from other MMOs. We're like, wow, how bad must other MMOs have been? Because this is crazy boring sometimes.
Yeah.
No, eventually I got to 60, and then we started, I can't remember if it was, it was 60, wasn't it? I'm trying to remember if 50 or 60 was the cap.
Yeah,
it's
60.
like, yeah, okay. Let's start doing the dungeons. And I mean, dungeons were always the most fun thing for me anyway. And then we geared up, and then we started doing the raids, and then I was in. Like, I was on like 5-6 hours a night, easy, just raiding. I was there for every raid. I became the mage class leader in my guild, and we eventually just were just banging our head against bosses. And even though it was so repetitive, it was so damn fun because it was really challenging.
And you only ever played a mage, right?
I've only ever played one class, yeah, the entire time. I played WoW for probably 6 years straight. I never played another class past level 20. Like, we did some weird kind of lobby stuff. At one point, I tried to set up a twink. I think I had a twink rogue. And, you know, for those who don't know what twinking is, it was the idea that you would level cap yourself out at the highest you could be in one bracket for PvP. This was when Battlegrounds came out. Like, when I started, they didn't even exist. But once they brought Battlegrounds out, twinking started. And you try and get the best possible, craziest gear for that level to be the most powerful you could be. It was like a whole new meta game in and of itself. I actually, like, it really pissed a lot of people off. Back in the day, twinking was hotly debated. I don't know if it is now, but...
Well, what they did now is they, like, cap... You have a ability or, like, some sort of, like, check mark thing where you can be like, I don't want to level past this level.
Yeah, you can.
So.
They actually officially supported it, which was really, like... That was one of the best changes they made because I was very afraid they'd cave. Like, Blizzard at the time was known for caving to... people who were like, oh, it's ruining my experience. And people are like, okay, we'll nerf it. But they actually said, no, we think, you know, twinking's a completely valid way to play, and it was. But it used to piss so many people off because while people were leveling, they'd sometimes go into Battlegrounds, and then they'd just get wrecked by this guy who was like level 19, he'd have the best crafted gear, he'd have, because, I mean, hell, there were low-level epics available. You could get low-level epics. Yeah. So he's running around with these ridiculously expensive BOE low-level epics and just murdering you, and people were furious at it. They were demanding that Blizzard do something about it, and Blizzard actually did the opposite, which was actually officially support it, because you used to accidentally level up your twink. Like, even if you moved to a new zone, you got experience. So it's like, shit, I hit 20. Now my twink's broken. I can't use them anymore. So yeah, that was interesting. But I never played any class other than mage. Like, I was a fire mage for like 2 years. I eventually had to respec at one point to frost. I insisted on playing fire, even in Molten Core, and that really nerfed my DPS. I was crappy. Like, I was relegated to being a decurse bot at that point. Yeah. I was just casting decurse all the time, but eventually they realized, yeah, maybe making bosses immune to certain kinds of magic is a really dumb idea, and then you could just play whatever spec you wanted. But at the time, I loved fire, but everyone was playing frost, and Arcane wasn't even viable then. Like, Arcane didn't become viable really until Burning Crusade, when they put Arcane Blast in and started to sort the rotations out. God, it was just like... if you want to play Arcane, you literally press the Arcane Missiles button over and over and over. And that is all you could do. Because you had no other good spells. Like, they were all terrible.
Make food and water.
Yeah, you were a goddamn vending machine, for the most part. I'm pretty sure there was at least one talent that buffed your ability to do that as well. It's like, oh, damn.
I think it was in Arcane.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. The old talent trees were so badly designed. Eventually, they sorted things out. Like, TBC, they put a good amount of effort into saying, hey, we realized that everything's terrible. So, you know, the only way you could even play an Arcane was, like, I think you took 21 points in Arcane and you could go Pom Pyro. And it'd be a nightmare in PvP because you just go, like, Fireball, Presence of Mind, Pyroblast, or Fire Blast, Pom Pyro, and just blow people up because of the burst. But everyone was a Frost Mage back then when they were raiding, because it was the only viable way to fight half the bosses in MC, which were made of fire and immune to fire. It's like, oh, why would you do this? This is a bad idea.
So you said you played Twinks then. So did you play, like, other class Twinks or still a mage?
I had a Twink Shaman at one point, but I didn't play a huge amount of them. Like, I didn't have the patience. Like, if you wanted to really play a Twink well, you had to invest a lot of money, and I wasn't really much of a farmer, so it took me a long time to get my first mount. Like, I was just running around most of the time because I couldn't afford a mount. Thankfully, you were a mage, so you at least had, like, teleport, so it was less of a pain in the arse to get around, but it took me a long time to get my mount. It took me even longer to get my epic mount, a huge amount of time to get my epic mount. That was when epic mounts, I think, they were 1,000 gold. Or was it the mount that was 1,000 gold, or the training? Because I remember them switching it around at one point. Like, they made either the training or the mount the more expensive thing. I think it was the mount initially that was expensive, and the training was cheap.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, too.
And then they changed it around because they were like, oh, well, it's kind of dumb that we make mounts so expensive so that you can't buy like more than one of them and have a bit of variety. So then they changed it around. But
yeah, because I remember like I got my mount at like level 44 or like 4 levels after you could even get a mount because I was so broke. And then epic mount I didn't get till like I was 60 for a long time. Like it was actually really rare.
yeah, I was one of those idiots that used to buy stuff off the AH, like yeah. It's like you shouldn't do that, but it's like, but I want it, but I want it. I remember, I think I saved up for the Staff of Jordan, which I think was a level 39
oh yeah,
staff.
I
like
remember that.
No reason to get that because I mean, it would last you about maybe 10 levels, but what's the point? I know leveling like took a long time, but once you started getting to dungeons around like level 55, 60, you would completely outmode that gear. So why on earth? But I love the shinies, man. I used to buy all sorts of stuff. It's probably why I had trouble buying my mount. But yeah, I mean, I never had the patience to stick with the twink because I couldn't be bothered to save up the money to buy all the gear. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And then just went back to my mage and just played him as my main and only character.
Yeah. So were you only in one guild or were you in multiple guilds?
I started off in the Halibuts, which was our old guild from Planetside. Then I kind of...
Is that why you're a total halibut?
That's where Total Halibut came from, yeah. Everyone who used to play in the Halibuts... Halibuts used to be a guild in Planetside that anyone could join. And you made an alt to play in it, and you had to have the word Halibut in your name to play. And we used to just, like, every, like, Thursday night, we'd just sit down, have some drinks, and just do stupid shit. Like, we'd get 60 guys on quad bikes to just go and raid, like, bases and do all sorts of stupid shit. And be highly offensive in the process. So when we moved to WoW, some people kept their Halibut names and some people didn't. I kept my Halibut name. So that's why my original character is called Total Halibut. When I left that guild, eventually I joined another guild on that server, but the server was dying at the time. And they eventually, I think, merged that. They gave a transfer option to a server called Mazrigo. And I moved to Mazrigo. I actually own one of the Blade servers that ran Mazrigo. Like, you remember they did that charity auction when they were auctioning off the old servers?
Yeah, I remember
Get them, like, mounted in a case. I actually have one. And it was one of the Blade servers that ran Mazrigo, my old server. And when I moved to there, I changed my name to Totalbiscuit because I could. Because there was no point in calling myself Total Halibut anymore. And then I joined a couple of different guilds. I remember one called the Eclipse that I joined, and there were a couple of others. And I had some raiding experience, so I joined some newer guilds that were just getting into raiding, and I did some raid leading for them to help them get through some content. And then when I was kind of sick of that, because honestly, being a raid leader is a real pain in the ass. Like, if people can't, you just like get exasperated at it. I did a trial for a hardcore guild. I think it was Lethe at the time. And I passed the trial, and I was allowed in, so I joined that, and immediately it was like, yeah, we've got Blackwing Lair on farm status, you come with us, get some gear. Like, I had a few epics, but I was mostly in blues at the time. Like, yeah, we'll gear you up, and then you can start earning DKP, and then you can start taking gear from, and they'd eventually, like, release the AQ dungeon, so it's like, yeah, we're gonna go to Archaeology, and then, of course, like, Naxxramas came into the mix as well. And that was an interesting one, because Nax came out while most people were still trying to beat Cthulhu. So we go do the first couple of bosses of Nax, like, because the first 2 bosses of Spiderwing were relatively easy. And if you had the DPS, you could do Patchwork as well, because that was, like, a huge DPS race. And you could also do, like, the first couple of bosses of the Death Knight Wing, like Instructor Vesuvius. I think he was the first one, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was.
3 bosses in the Death Knight Wing? I think there were. Because then it was the 4 horsemen. It was like, yeah, you need 8 tanks. We don't have 8 tanks. So we used to dip into Nax and get a bit of gear from there, and that would help us beat Cthulhu, which was a really interesting way of doing it, actually. And it's the reason why when they brought crazy attunements into Burning Crusade that I really hated them, because when we played vanilla, we didn't have those attunements. Like, getting to Nax was really easy. I think there was some quest you had to do, but it took, like, no time at all. So you did the quest, get into Nax, and we used to dip into Nax, do a few bosses, and that would help us with the rest of our raiding. But then Blizzard were like, no, you can't do that. You've got to do 1 tier first, then the next tier, then the next tier, in that order. And I was pissy at that, because I thought it was a really stupid way of handling things. I thought it made things more unnecessarily difficult. Not to mention that if you joined a new guild and you didn't have the attunement, you had to spend fucking days getting them all. And they'd have to, like, they'd hire new people, and it's like, oh, damn, we can't take them into this dungeon, so suddenly we don't have the people that we need to run it. Ah, man.
Yeah,
It was
attunements.
convoluted. Attunements were convoluted. I mean, they have their benefits. Like, if I look back at them and I see like there were definitely some benefits to it. Like, you were certainly prepared by the time that you got into those dungeons, but holy crap, that achievement quest was ridiculous. The amount of stuff you had to do, the amount of dungeons you had to run was ludicrous. Just silly.
But I mean, when did you quit then? Because I know you quit, like, I don't know if you played Wrath or if you quit in Wrath.
I played Wrath. I did quit at some point. Like, I played Ice. I mean, I played the Ice Crown Citadel, and I beat the vast majority of it and a good amount of it on Heroic. But then I sort of, I took some time off it, and it was really because I went to play Cataclysm Beta, because I had access to it. So I actually stopped playing. And I think a lot of people did this as well. Pretty much like about 6 or 8 months before the launch of each expansion, a lot of us just stopped playing that expansion because they're like, yeah, there's no point playing the previous content because it's all about to be outmoded. So I stopped playing that, and then I ended up playing Cataclysm Beta and spent a huge amount of time on that, and that's when like I basically got this job. But after that, I played some Cata, and I got really disillusioned with it, and they nerfed the crap out of it. And bear in mind, Wrath was where a lot of us were complaining that the content was just getting nerfed into the ground and made really, really boring. And this huge difficulty gap between normal and heroic modes. So people were getting really pissy about that. And Cata, when I first went in there, the dungeons were really hard. Like and I was really happy about it because I'm like, yeah, finally people have to play as a team. Because when we were running the old Wrath 5-mans, even the heroic 5-mans were a joke. That you just blasted through them, nobody cared.
Yeah, you just AoE'd.
Yeah, you just AoE'd everything. It was a joke. And I was like, this is not what I signed up for when I went to run dungeons. Like, I liked the strategy of dungeons. I liked that you had to be on your toes. And then Cata came along, and the beta, you had to be on your toes. I was like, yeah. And I was preaching that this was a return to the old ways, like Burning Crusade. And then they nerfed all the fucking dungeons into the ground before they released the expansion. I was like, you fuckers. Oh my god. And eventually I think I did the first tier of raiding, and then I just got bored of it. Like, I think honestly, there was 5 years into WoW, and I was just like, I think I've had my fill. Yeah. This is as far as I can go with World of Warcraft. I'm just done. And I looked towards other games like that had different combat systems. I was looking towards Guild Wars 2 and all sorts of things like that, as I was, getting into the betas of those kind of games. So that was like my last experience in WoW, and I never came back.
Well, I think a lot of people have that too, and that's why a lot of people are like, oh, bring back a vanilla server or like a Burning Crusade server. But at the same time, it's like they're trying to recreate that experience, and I don't think they can.
Yeah, it was a product of its time, and it was also a product of the time that we had, like the free time that we had. I would never be able to play WoW these days. I have a job playing video games for a living, and I still don't have time to play WoW. Come on, I'd never be able to play old school WoW. The amount of it could take us like 8 hours to run Molten Core. It could take such a long time. It was a big dungeon. There was a lot of trash. The respawn times were kind of silly. You had to work your way through, and wipes were disastrous. Wipe recovery in that game was crazy. You had to run a great deal. Like, Molten Core didn't have, if I recall correctly, any way to get back to where you were, because they implemented into the newer dungeons like, oh, you kind of come to a checkpoint, and you could warp right back to that. That wasn't the case in vanilla. You had to run through the entire goddamn dungeon. If there were trash respawns, you had the whole guild had to go back and clear the trash so you could get through.
Yeah, and not even just from that, like from the zone it was in Blackrock Mountain.
The running time. Like, it took 5 minutes to run back from the graveyard. It was ludicrous. So I don't think it would be a good idea to go back to an old vanilla server. Like, the nostalgia's there. I had fun at the time, but I don't think I'd have fun doing it again.
Yeah. I mean, I played in high school and I had nothing else to do, so I was like, this is awesome.
I'd basically just beaten, what the hell am I talking about? I think I'd just finished university, and I was working a full-time job, but I had no responsibilities. I worked 9 to 5, and then I just played WoW all the rest of the time. So I come home, I'd raid till like midnight, go to bed, and rinse and repeat every day.
What did you do back then?
I was working for Game. I was a retail clerk. I worked in a game store.
Oh, so it's kind of fitting.
Ish, yeah. I'd never do it again. I'd never recommend it to anyone. It sounds fun when you're like, oh, wow, working in a game store, that's amazing. No, 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 no. If you want something that drives the enthusiasm for your hobby right out of you, go work in a store that sells it. Don't. Just don't. Retail is hell. Admittedly, I think everyone should have to do 2 years of retail just so they'll treat retail clerks better. You know, if you've been on the other side of the counter, you know just how awful people can be.
Just like it's like a military thing. Serve your 2 years of retail.
Yeah, you should be conscripted into retail just so you become a more reasonable human being. Respect.
Yeah. Well, like in all your years of WoW, like what were some of your best memories, or like in raiding, or just any aspect of the game?
I think it was all pretty much raiding that was like the best stuff, because killing the big bosses was always a really great social experience in the 40-mans. I remember us beating Cthulhu because we worked so hard to do it, and we weren't the first on the server to do it. I think we were like the second or third guild to kill him, but it was a big deal for us, you know. And the first time we killed the boss in Molten Core, that was a big deal as well. I loved that, and then that first time just going through the portal into the Outlands was
right when
amazing.
TBC came out.
Yeah, and you went in there and you saw this huge battle going on and the amazing Sky Dome, and just that's why Hellfire Peninsula is like my favorite zone of all time, I think, because of that memory, and also because it just looked incredible. It looked like better than anything they'd done before, and the music was so good. I should download the Burning Crusade soundtrack. I used to have it on a CD because I got the Burning Crusade Collector's Edition. When I worked for Game, I did a launch event for Burning Crusade where I convinced the manager to get us a bunch of collector's editions, and I used like my WoW Radio podcast to bring a bunch of people down. So we got like in this tiny store, we got like 50 people queuing up to get Burning Crusade, and I got them all collector's editions, and we had like WoW music playing throughout the store. It was awesome.
That is really cool.
Really cool, really cool. So I got some really good memories from around that time, but you know, Wrath is where stuff started to go downhill for me, and then I don't think it ever really recovered.
Yeah, I think the Burning Crusade did have a really good soundtrack, now that I think of it.
It did. It was really good, incredibly good. I'm going to download it right now, actually. I miss it.
Yeah.
I need to revisit that. I think every zone had an incredible piece of music accompanying it. I mean, WoW's always had good music, but I think TBC knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I know I loved Zangar Marsh. That was one of my favorite ones in the Grand.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, but it was just Zangar Marsh was just an incredible looking zone. Like all the zones in TBC were a major step up from what the stuff looked like on on the original Azeroth. So that was a big deal.
And I think even though people are like, oh, it's cartoony or whatever, it's like when you went into a zone, you kind of felt that zone's atmosphere. Like, for example, like Zangar Marsh is very like blue and rainy and like depressing, and the music was like a jazzy type sound. And then Hellfire, you felt like it's war.
It's epic, it's sweeping themes and everything like that. And I'm trying to think of like the other place. Obviously, there was the place where
Grand.
Where was Black Temple?
Shadow Moon Valley.
Shadow Moon Valley, that was the one, yeah.
Yep.
There was one
Blade's
other
Edge.
zone. Oh, Blade's Edge Mountains. I actually skipped most of that. Like, you didn't have to do most of Blade's Edge if you did a lot of the other zones. Because I know that it wasn't that point that they started splitting the starting zones. They did that in Wrath because they realized having everyone in the same zone on launch is a stupid idea. So then they had 2 zones which you could fight in, and they were both the same level.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I don't remember the names of them now.
It was in Wrath?
Yeah.
Borean Tundra.
And then what was the other one?
Howling Fjord.
Howling Fjord, yeah. Howling Fjord is the one that I did, and I know a lot of people did Borean Tundra or Boring Tundra.
Yeah, I called it the Boring Tundra.
The Boring Tundra, yeah.
I liked Howling Fjord a lot more.
Oh man, now I remember Netherstorm. That was
Netherstorm.
That was an incredible looking zone.
Yeah,
that
with
was
the
so
purple
awesome.
storms and...
And the like biodomes and everything.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the one zone where there was a lot of this really crazy mixing up, where they said, yeah, there's like technology here and all sorts of weird, crazy stuff. And I was like, wow. That's amazing. There was all sorts of fun stuff going on in Netherstorm. I remember that one.
Yeah. So I think they're missing out on an opportunity right now to even like kind of go back and have people experience it. Like I thought it'd be cool if they put random treasures or toys or stuff people could get like out in those worlds and like have them go explore it, or even like pay homage to like those things. Like maybe you find Archmage Vargoth's staff out there again.
Didn't they kind of do that with Archaeology? Wasn't that the whole purpose of that?
I think it was, but it was also Archaeology and it was really boring.
That's a fair point. Oh man, I remember my Archaeology video. It was literally 30 minutes of me running around. Hang on, I'm going to find out how many views this got, because this is an ancient video. I remember that one did really well, if I recall correctly. Where is it? Where is it? Archaeology. I guess I probably couldn't spell back then, because that's pretty sure that's not how you spelled it. Where is that video? I'm pretty sure it did really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
like
like
when it came out.
Yeah, I was like the first one on the Archaeology train as soon as they brought that out, and I did a bunch of stuff there. Oh yes, 895,000 views on my Archaeology guide. It's like 16 minutes of me just digging. Like, a lot of these things were really dull, like incredibly boring. I'm really kind of surprised that people watched them, but they did. They did.
Maybe they were like trying to fall asleep. It's like ASMR.
You know, I actually have had a lot of people say that they watched some of my old WoW videos. I'm like, wow, really? My mic sucked back then. I can't imagine you'd like that. But yeah, that was uploaded on September the 11th, 2010. Archaeology video. So yeah, it's like almost a five-year-old video now.
Yeah, I do that with my videos. I'll like go back and hear the like mic quality, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, I even listened back a year ago, and I'm like, wow, my delivery was terrible there or something. You know, it's like, wow, what is he saying? Am I even talking about the game or just rambling on? Oh, but, oh my, I got all sorts of things. Like the Ultramarine Karaji battle tank and the Clockwork Gnome. I used to make just really short videos. Like I've got a video that's like 1 minute 28 here, just all these little things, all sorts of nonsense.
That's all from the beta, right?
All from the beta, yeah. And people just they were so desperate for content. I used to do 4 videos a day.
Oh wow!
Like, it was just really small videos a lot of the time, but people would just they just wanted little bits of new content. So when I showed off like the skeletal raptor pet and mount that I got and how to get them, I think that was actually from Archaeology, from the fossil tree.
Yeah.
And I unlocked those, and actually I wasn't even the one who unlocked them. It was someone else. And the trees built them riding around. But people was like, wow, that's amazing. And that's all I would do, is I would just show off anything new I could find. I'd just show it off.
And you just competed with Jesse.
Yeah, we don't. I remember Jesse beat me to that amazing quest the day Deathwing came.
Yeah.
And I beat him to Welcome to the Machine, and then I also beat him to the Plants vs. Zombies quest.
Oh, yeah.
East Bloom vs. Ghouls. I have 1.7 million views on that one. Which is kind of crazy, but yeah, the day Deathwing came, I just don't know how I missed out on that one. Yeah, Jesse, 1.3 million views on that one.
Yeah, and it's like, it's funny because like even though now you've both like been doing this for so long, those are still like some of your most viewed videos.
Yeah, because they've been around for so long. Like that's really old videos on YouTube just seem to acquire views from nowhere, just because they appear in related stuff all the time. So I still get views. Like still I think it's my 3rd most popular video of all time is still Worgen Starting Zone episode 1.
Yeah, I remember that. So I think you were like the first one to do that too.
Yeah.
Or at least the most popular one.
Yeah.
That's really all you gotta do.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it was as soon as that came out, I blitzed as much of it as I could and then started putting videos up as rapidly as possible. And then they just made the rounds of the forums, they got posted on websites, and then people would watch that. There was a huge drop off, obviously. Like people didn't continue to watch that series. I used to do leveling videos, which like looking back on them, that was a pretty boring way to do things, honestly. Some people like to watch them. I think it's probably the same reason they like to watch yours. They're just like, they're really good background noise.
Yeah.
Just sort of a relaxing sort of, hey, I want something on my second monitor kind of thing.
That's literally the only reason I like still make it's because I know like everybody I talk to is like I love watching that in the background. 'Cause it's just like rambling, and falling asleep, and whatever.
Totally.
That's fine with me.
Yep, totally fine with that. Why not? You know.
So I think the final question I'll ask you is, if you were able to change the game and make it how you wanted it, how would you do it today?
I'd probably have to vastly redo the combat system because I am completely over hotkey-based MMOs. Like, press button to cast spell, wait for spell to cast. I'm done with that. Like, if you were to make a WoW 2, it would be a case of have a nice action-orientated combat system, something like Guild Wars or Terra Online. Just make combat a lot more interesting. Bring back more interesting and difficult boss fights. Focus a lot on dungeon running because that was the real strength of that game. When it came to raiding and dungeons, WoW was pretty much peerless at the time. Like, yeah, there were games that had big dungeons, but none that was well organized, and none that had like a clear progression path. So to me, that was the absolute best thing, and I was really happy to be able to run through the dungeons that way. And I would want to see a big focus on that again, and multiple tiers of difficulty. Don't devalue epics, you know. It was just so silly that they made epics mean nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to be a big deal. If someone had an epic item, it's like, wow, he has an epic, and now it's like, oh, they're just handing them out now. It's like, give it new tiers of rarity. I think they actually fixed that now, didn't they? I'm pretty sure you just get blues now in the lowest tier of raids, right?
I think you do, but it's still really easy to get epics.
Yeah. I'd love to see epics just become valuable again. Focus on the dungeons, completely redo the combat system, do something with world PvP. Like, I mean, you know, other games have shown you how to do that now, I think. So, you know, turn it around, allow people to do some really good stuff with world PvP, and I think that people will be much more happy to do it. And hell, if they did all those things, I'd probably dive back in, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. And you know, let's be honest. I mean, we're not gonna go back to WoW at this point.
Yeah. You'd at least try it again if that happened.
Oh yeah, if they went that crazy with it. But I don't, unless they release WoW 2, which I don't think they're ever gonna do. I don't think that's gonna be a thing. What I am doing right now is buying all the soundtracks. I just remembered that they had some amazing stuff. They did like the Taverns of Azeroth album. I'm like, oh yeah, that was really cool. I should buy that. So I'm gonna go buy some WoW music and listen to it. It's gonna be great.
I know when I talked to Oxhorn the other week, he was kind of nostalgic because he logged in and saw like someone crafted one of his pieces of gear that he hadn't talked to in forever, and so he like saw that name and was just like, oh my god. But yeah, he kind of compared it to like going to see your old high school, or like where you used to go to school and being like, wow, I had some good times. Then you know you just go back to your current life, so you can't go back to that.
No, you can't. You absolutely cannot go back to that, and it's a shame. But I think you gotta move past it. You know, I don't view my time in WoW as wasted. I think that I had a lot of good memories from that that'll stick with me forever. So, hey, you know, whatever. I don't think you can keep playing the same game forever. I left. I don't regret it. I don't want to go back.
Yep, but and it helped you get to where you are today.
Yeah, it did. You know, it really did. I'm not necessarily grateful to it for that. I still get emails from people who are like, you should realize where you came from and go back to WoW and like be grateful to the game. It's like, no, I don't think that's necessary. But hey, there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining me and fishing with me. Well, I mean, I'm fishing and you're here.
And I'm browsing WoW music. Apparently, you can't get it on Amazon. I think I've actually got to get it from iTunes. Oh, I hate iTunes. Oh, God. I feel disgusting just downloading that. Oh, well, never mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I never know how to end these. So,
okay.
See you later.
Bye.
See you.